You're listening to Accounted For, the Canadian podcast that explores the intangibles of every career. I'm your host, Daniel Lee. Hello, welcome back to Accounted For. This is a podcast that shares and inspires unconventional career journeys. Welcome back, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope you are being safe, or staying safe. Is that the right word? Yeah, staying safe. Don't go near anyone, social distance, all that good jazz. I hope I can bring some entertainment to your ears today, and we'll start by going through today's conversation, which is with Terrance Kwok. He is the product manager at HyperComply. Terrance was one of the pivotal folks who actually recruited me to KPMG to start my accounting career back in the earlier days. It's been a while since then, and today we go through Terrance's journey from leaving accounting just before getting his chartered accountant designation to joining a young Vidyard before it became the current 150 plus person tech company it is now, in an entry role in sales. We explore how he pivoted from sales to product management, working remotely in London, UK, while working for a company based out of Kitchener, and his subsequent journey being a digital nomad, product manager at Chilipiper and HyperComply. This was a super fun conversation where we dove into what it was actually like to make each pivotal jump in Terrance's career, and how shame, embarrassment, and doubt are all just really real and even normal emotions when you go through creating this kind of unconventional career for yourself. And so there's a bit of camaraderie that I experience as we talk about the kind of journey that we had to take after leaving the public accounting world. And something I want to caveat is just please forgive me on places where the audio quality isn't just as great. I think with COVID-19, Terrance has taken refuge in a hotel where the connection wasn't the best, and so we talked about that a little bit, but yeah, please forgive me on that. I tried my best to change the audio quality, but I promise you it won't change how fun this conversation will be for you, and I really do hope that it's a fun, informative, and entertaining conversation. So without further ado, here's my chat with Terrance Kwok. Hey everyone, welcome back to Accounted For. Today on the podcast, we have Terrance Kwok. Hey Terrance, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Terrance here is the product manager at HyperComply. And Terrance, for our audience who may not be familiar with the company, could you kind of give us a kind of brief overview of what HyperComply is, what you guys do?
Yeah, so HyperComply is a startup kind of based. We're kind of based all around the world right now, completely distributed. So we've got team members in a team member in Sydney, New York, and Toronto, and right now I'm currently in Edmonton. What our company does is we help companies get through security questionnaires and info security reviews faster through a bit of automation. So when, depending on the audience here, if they're familiar with security questionnaires and sales cycles, typically in a sales cycle, a company will receive an InfoSec review before going into procurement, where they have to make sure, data is being properly handled, that there's adequate, disaster recovery plans, business continuity plans, obviously very relevant to the times right now. And usually these questionnaires are fairly repetitive. They could be, 100 to 300 questions at a time. So typically teams are going to be spending a lot of their time filling these repetitive questionnaires out. And what HyperComply does is we completely automate that so that they spend basically no time at all getting through these questionnaires.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And you're right now working out of Edmonton, but that's kind of because you had to come back to home base because of the whole COVID situation. But where were you before Edmonton? Were you in Taiwan, I think?
Yeah, so I was in Taiwan before Edmonton, rushed back from Taiwan. But we were in Taiwan because we left Japan, because Japan looked like it was getting kind of messed up, and we kind of fled Japan for Taiwan. And then when Trudeau said come back home, we didn't want to roll the dice, so we came back to Canada.
And I guess those are the kind of first world problems of people who work remotely. You're just like jumping between these countries, and yeah, I can't imagine. It must be a very different experience for remote workers all throughout, where it's like the benefit of remote is that you get to work from anywhere. But when this kind of global pandemic happens, like the situation of it all, are your colleagues all like kind of back in their home countries too then?
Yeah, sort of. Two of them are. They weren't traveling around. They weren't doing like
Mm.
the quote unquote digital nomad thing. And then one of them has just has made their way to Sydney. So yeah, we're all safe and sound right now. Uh, and it's been a bit better too, because like I was working in Asia and like the hours were kind of wacky when you're trying to work. Like we would primarily work asynchronously, but it's not always super easy to work being one of the only employees in a completely different time zone, right? So being back in Canada now, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. We're a lot more efficient. It's easier to get stuff done. Yeah.
And before we kind of dive into what it's like to actually work remotely and kind of the details of the product manager, I want to start off with the earlier side. Before your days as a product manager, I think we both went to the University of Waterloo, went to the accounting program together, and I think you were one of the pivotal people who actually brought me on board into KPMG. Like you didn't technically hire me, but I remember during those kind of co-op networking events, you were definitely very material, I think, in
Oh, no way.
making me join the firm. Like I think that was like one of the early memories I have of like our interaction together. And so you started out in accounting, but was like growing up, did you always want to be an accountant?
No. I feel like I had a pretty typical journey to get into accounting.
Yeah.
As in, like, I didn't really know what accounting was until maybe grade 12 or like the end of high school. Um, at the time when I was making decisions on where to go to school, I had been primarily applying for music programs. So like U of T music, like Western music, Queen's music, and I wanted to be a musician. I
Oh
wanted
wow,
to
no way.
play saxophone. Yeah. But I think like looking back, like, and the reason why I ended up applying for University of Waterloo for accounting specifically was that a family friend who was a few years older than me, and she had been in the accounting program, and introduced us to the accounting program. It seemed like it was a great program and a prestigious program. So I kind of threw my hat in. I decided to apply to that as well. And then when it came to decision making time, I think I realized that like, okay, like I got into a couple schools for music, and I got into Waterloo for accounting, and I was kind of taking an evaluation like I'm probably not going to be good enough at music ever to make anything out of it. Like my peers in high school were way better musicians, like way more talented, way more dedicated. I think I just liked playing music, but I didn't really like putting in the effort to become like really great at it. Um, so I took a safer decision, and that's how I ended up choosing accounting at Waterloo.
Oh wow. Uh, During your time in Waterloo, did you ever think about switching into a music program, like leaving accounting?
No, not really. I took a few classes like electives in music, like nothing that was actually performance based, but like I think I took like a musical history class, like maybe music and technology class or something like that. But no, I think once I got into accounting, I decided I was going to stick with that, or at least for a few years. Um, the way I stayed in tune with music was I had a couple of friends who went to Laurier that we played in a band together in high school. So we were just playing gigs around the city and like at bars and stuff like that on campus. So that was like it was kind of like a nice hobby to have at that point. Just
Yeah.
play whenever an opportunity came up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you ended up continuing down the accounting path. You spent all your co-op terms at KPMG. You went back after graduation as a senior accountant, and then you did what many don't do, and you left before you got your letters, right? Like you left before like the time period requirement
Yeah.
to get your CA at the time, like because that's one of those. It's like the classic accounting story. I'm sure like you hear from your friends and I hear from my friends, where everyone's like, I don't like it. It's not the best, but I'll just stick it out until like I get my letters and then I'll decide. But for you, you decided earlier than that to, I'm just gonna leave, and you went to join Vidyard in Kitchener in like a sales role.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how did that story pan out?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like you got to go back to like first year university to like understand why I made those decisions.
Yeah, no kidding. Tell me.
Um, I think I knew after like a single semester at Waterloo in accounting that I was probably not meant to be an accountant. I did really poorly in school. I just, something about the classes were not clicking with me, but I didn't have a good grasp of sunk cost fallacy, right? So I just continued like spending more and more time in it. But really, like, I wasn't having, like, I kind of knew after like a semester in school and even like a co-op term at KPMG that like this wasn't really for me. But I figured I'd try to stick it out. And I think that like the mentality of like not really giving it a fair chance, like from even just a single semester, just forced myself to power through it. And so when it came to full time, like I've written all the exams, but continued to know like this wasn't for me. So and I didn't really want to continue down this path. I think I just like, to be honest, I kind of gave up. So like I I was like 3 months away from qualifying or 2 months away from qualifying, and I kind of got in my head that I wanted to try to get into tech. So I just started interviewing, and Vidyard had come up, and it was like an entry level sales role. And at the time, it seemed like a big step back career wise. My mindset was like, okay, I think I lied to myself a little bit. I was that this is like once in a lifetime opportunity. I cannot get a sales role ever again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue paying my CA fees, and I'm going to quit KPMG. I'm going to go work at Vidyard. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back and join another accounting firm and finish off my CA, knowing full well that I would probably never go back. So that's kind of how I justified. That's kind of how I justified quitting with only 2 months to go, because I felt like there was still a safety net in case like things didn't work out. I was still paying my fees. I was still eligible to like complete my CA. But yeah, it was looking back, it was a pretty irrational decision. Like it probably wasn't the smartest move.
Well,
Yeah.
I think looking back, in hindsight, we could say that it worked out just fine, like just okay. And I think although like yeah, like I feel like when you're in those moments, it's like you can bring up all kinds of rational arguments of like why this is gonna be okay, but I feel a lot of times it is really from the gut. Like I remember when I left KPMG, so I left after my third co-op term, and so I was going into my last co-op term without anything, but I called the partner to just straight up tell him formally that okay, I'm rejecting the return offer. I'm not gonna go back, and I felt very good about that. Like it wasn't very like stressful, but it was on the opposite end. Like I don't know what I was gonna do after. I thought I'd be a trader, although during that time all these trading jobs were rejecting me because I wasn't a quant. But
Right.
it was like that feeling, just like a gut feeling of I think this is probably the right thing to do, even though like I tell myself, the partner told me I can come back. Always have a job as an accountant, but it's like that. It's like that insurance policy you never actually plan on using. It's kind of like, is it really even a policy kind of thing?
Right. Exactly. It's almost it's the stories we tell ourselves to like, you know, make decisions easier, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I wonder if you got this question a lot during the transition you made. So like given our kind of background, the career progression that we tend to go through, like it's a very in any, I guess, a corporate world, people go through the ladder, right? The whole promotion ladder. You go from a staff accountant, senior accountant, manager, all that. And when I left, KPMG and I moved over to Deloitte in a consulting role, although it was completely unintentional, I didn't intend to go be in another big four. I had to start from the bottom again, whereas all my friends were starting in senior accounting roles, and I was a bottom analyst. And then after I left consulting to go work at my hedge fund, I started at the bottom again as an analyst, whereas all my friends were becoming senior consultants. And I always get this question from a lot of people, like after I've also now left the hedge fund and now I'm an entrepreneur, which is quote unquote also fun employed. They always ask like, how do you feel about seeing friends like surpass you in these like kind of promotional scales? Like, has it never like worried you? Doesn't it give you any kind of anxiety? So I get these questions a lot, and I've found a way of answering it on my own. But I'm curious for you, like when you were going through it in the beginning, like leaving KPMG to go to Vidyard in like a sales role, like what was it like during that time? Like how, and compared to that, how do you look at it now? Because I feel like it's very different when you're actually in it, and then when you look back on it.
Right. I think in it, I was extremely anxious, and I wasn't anxious about the decision to join Vidyard. Like the team was
Right.
obvious to me that it was an awesome team to join, and I was excited to work with those people. But I would be lying if I felt like ego wasn't taking a huge hit, right? Like gone to senior accountant, you know, like my classmates and my friends were like really starting to progress in their careers in that accounting world or traditional worlds, right? Like they went into finance, they went into consulting, right? Like these are like really cool and exciting places that everyone from university wanted to join. And instead, I had like gone and became a sales development rep at a like a little loan tech company, right? Um, it was I felt nervous at the time, like, and I felt kind of. I actually distinctly remember explaining to a friend of mine what I do at work, and sales is exciting. Sales is like an extremely challenging job to do. But when you start explaining what the day to day sounds like, it sounds like you work at a call center, right? And I remember feeling like kind of ashamed and kind of like embarrassed that this person is going to like make manager like at KPMG or something like that. They're leading a team, and instead I'm like, yeah, I like follow up with leads and like leave them voicemails, and then they're like, leave me a voicemail on and show me what you're saying. I'm like, it just didn't feel like it's hard to explain to people that we went to school with, you know, why I was doing this, what I thought was exciting about it, and it was hard to explain it in a way that made it sound like, hey, like I'm putting my education to good use and I'm doing something really, really exciting. It just sounded like I took a call center job, and there's nothing wrong with those like call center roles at all. It just for people that we went to school with, they kind of had a certain expectation of like what their careers will look like, and now you're doing something so different. It's hard to feel like you're the odd one out, and like you feel like a failure or whatever. Um, Looking back though, I said earlier that like it was irrational not to get my CA. I still stand by that. Like I should have just like powered through and got it, because that sticks with you for life. And those are things that no one else can take away. Like whether or not you apply it every single day or apply it to your current job is one thing, but I think it's powerful to say you have a professional designation. So I do think it was irrational for me to not finish it. But looking back, like I am like not ashamed of what the path I took, and I think like at the time it seemed scary, but the further you get out from school, the more you realize everyone's taking a different path and everyone's kind of doing different things. And I think the decisions that I made at that time have allowed me to have like a career that I'm really happy with and and I'm excited about, and getting on the different paths that I've taken since. So um, yeah, I think I like got a little bit sidetracked from your initial question, but in short, it was scary at the time, and it felt I was a little bit embarrassed at the time. But now I look back, I'm like, I'm so happy I made those decisions, because I don't know what my life would be like had I spent another 5 years in accounting. Like I don't think I'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I think that the kind of picture you painted was actually like very helpful in like kind of giving that insight too. And I'm curious, so, like when you first interviewed for the sales role, like what gave you that, I guess, kind of internal conviction that this is right. I should take this jump, no matter even in the face of all the unconventional moves you could possibly make, with the anxiety, like all that, like the such a strong conviction to like actually make the jump to sales role. Like I ask because I don't know if I told you, but my first summer job from university was in a sales role for a startup.
oh,
So
nice. I didn't know that.
so they called it a business development representative, and I didn't know what that was, but I applied and I got the job. And so it was a media publishing startup that was trying to make digital magazine interactive. I don't think the company exists anymore, but then it was kind of like what you said. Like I'd tell my friends, like, yeah, I do about 100 cold calls a day, and sometimes people tell me to fuck off. Sometimes I talk to the client
Yeah,
about his dog for about half an hour, and then I try to get them to sign up on our magazine platform. But I didn't know that was sales, because what would
yeah.
I know about sales? So I'm curious, like for me, that was not a very fun experience. Like, and that's when I learned that okay, I don't think sales is a very exciting thing for me, but it can definitely be a super exciting thing for other people, because that's what I saw from my managers. But I'm curious for you, like, what gave you the kind of conviction once you interviewed and kind of learned what the role was about, that, oh, like, this sounds way more exciting, and what about it was exciting?
I think it was like, to be honest, I think I went in, I accepted that role not really knowing what I was getting myself into. I don't think I fully, just like how I didn't really fully grasp what accounting was when I went into accounting at Waterloo. I don't think I really fully grasped what a sales role was until I actually joined. There's two reasons why I decided to take that job, and none of them are really related to sales. The first reason why I felt confident was, that friend that I said was a couple years ahead and was the reason why I joined accounting at Waterloo.
Yeah.
She actually had dropped out of accounting after third year of university, and she ended up in sales. So she had left accounting and ended up in a sales role, and had told me, like, and I've always looked at her as a mentor. So hearing about what she was doing, I was like, yeah, I feel like, that would be something I'd be good at, right? And she introduced me to a couple people. She actually introduced me to a CA who was in sales but had a CA background, and after talking to them, I was just like, yeah, sales sounds great, but not really knowing what sales was still. I just thought it sounded great because these people were telling me that they think I would be good at it. So like, she inspired a lot of confidence that it was the right decision, because she's like, yeah, you'd be great at sales. Like, based on what I know about you, like, this would be a good path for you. So that was one reason. The second reason why I felt pretty confident taking that job, or taking that leap, was that, like, the leadership team at Vidyard, the people that I interviewed with at Vidyard, they were all phenomenal. And after having a couple meetings with them, I just realized that, like, this is a place I wanted to be, and I would do any, like, job to just be with this team and to work with this team. So I don't know if there's anything about sales specifically that I felt confident in. I think I just was ignorant and I didn't really understand what sales was. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up being okay with that decision.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And so then, if we kind of take a step back, and so from sales at Vidyard, you went to become a product manager for Vidyard, and then you became a product manager for another remote company called Chilipiper, until your current role as a product manager for HyperComply. And so the transition from sales to product manager, like, I've had a chance to speak to a lot of different product managers through the podcast, but also just on my journey as well. And the many product managers who are not from a engineering / like technical background will have mentioned how kind of challenging it is to make the transition, just because there are some kind of industry biases of, if you're not an engineer or some kind of technical computer scientist, you're not really quote unquote qualified to be a product manager. And not saying it's always like that, but I think that kind of bias exists based on the empirical data I have collected from my many conversations. Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, I guess 2-part question. One is, why did you make the switch to product manager? And then,
sure,
how did you make it?
Yeah. Okay. So the why part, I think I knew pretty quickly that sales was probably the hardest job I've ever done. Like, it was so hard.
Oh, why?
It was just, it's mentally, it's emotionally exhausting, right? Like, making cold calls, getting rejected, getting told to F off, like you said earlier, being stood up for meetings, being told no day in, day out. I realized quickly that I didn't have I didn't have the grit to do that job. I did it. I did it for 10 months in an individual contributor role. But as soon as an opportunity came up to, like, kind of step out of, like, the IC role and move into, like, a manager role, I took it. So I actually moved into a manager role, and I was managing a sales development team. I did that for 2 years, and that was a really fun job, because yes, you're in the sales department, but you're not selling yourself. You're kind of training and coaching a team and helping them develop in their careers. And why I in particular really like that role was because I was working with, like, primarily new graduates, right? People fresh out of school, people that were starting their careers, and it was fun just, like, helping guide them and mentor them and help them get their career off to a good start. But I wasn't really selling anymore. And I guess I was, like, looking at my career path from sales development manager. Usually, if you want to continue going into sales leadership, like real sales leadership, or not real sales, like continue climbing the sales leadership ladder, you need to go into, like, enterprise sales. And I would have to leave a manager role and kind of go back into individual contributor and then, actually invest in that part of my career.
Oh.
And I was like looking at it like that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not good at it. I don't have like the drive that makes a really good sales rep. Sales reps are incredibly competitive. They just love winning. And I didn't really feel that pull. So like maybe like a year and a half into my sales development manager job, I was like trying to figure out what to do next. And again, I didn't really know anything about product management. But I started talking to the product manager at Vidyard, and we would have these long carpool rides back and forth between Kitchener and Toronto because both of us had like kind of homes in both cities. And the more I talked to her, the more I realized that like the things that I like about sales development management, like outside of the coaching side, like I like the operational side of leading that team, like thinking through the numbers, thinking about the strategy, the direction, how do we become more efficient? How do we like win more? I like the coordination, like the different departments, like marketing and product, like just like understanding where we're headed, like as a company, and working with the marketers to understand like, what are the campaigns we're running. Just kind of like all the non-sales part of sales development management was actually my favorite part. And kind of speaking with her and learning more about product management and learning more about what she did. Like at the end of the day, she was driving the direction of the business. She was like thinking about like, where do we need to head as a company, right? And what are the features that we need to build or the products that we need to build to support that? That seemed really exciting and sexy to me, like as a role. Like I was like, wow, that's cool. That's getting into the driver's seat and moving a company forward and making sure they continue to innovate and all that stuff. So that's kind of like how I ended up thinking about product management as a career path and how I kind of landed on it. I guess like to answer your second question, which is like, how do you get into the role? I totally agree. It is really hard to get a product management job. If you're just like you're just applying to postings and you're trying to convince someone to hire you, because product management is definitely one of those jobs where people expect you to have experience, but very few people actually have experience. So it's like, yeah, we need 5 to 10 years of product management experience at a scaling SaaS company, that's worked with designers and engineers working on really complex problems, blah, blah, blah. There's like a handful of people in Toronto that have done that. So you kind of need a company to take a chance on you. And I think the easiest way to do that was applying internally. So like starting at Vidyard, working in a junior role, kind of working my way, proving myself in other departments. So when it came time to like ask like the team, like, hey, I think I want to do product management, it was really easy to get support. Because I guess at the time, focused, that I care about the team, that I'm working hard, and that I'm able to do good work in the roles that I've previously been given. So I guess that's how I decided to be a product manager, and then how I ended up being a product manager.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, Terrance. I think maybe it's the place you're sitting or something about your mic where it's kind of going in and out a little with the audio. It was that just short moment when you're just doing the final backdrop of it, but I don't know if it's the internet.
It might be this hotel internet, the self-isolation life. You don't have a lot of choices in terms of internet right now.
Yeah, well, I think.
Let me know. Is this better?
Yeah, it's actually better. I appreciate that. And for the listeners, this is legitimate stuff that you go through when you're actually going through podcasts and when you actually are some kind of a remote employee. I actually want to talk about the remote part too, because you actually managed to change your role from an on-prem role where you actually be working at Kitchener to a remote one where you end up going to London, UK, and working from there. So because some people believe that, oh yeah, like I gotta leave my job and find a remote job if I want to work remotely, but you were able to orchestrate it while being an employee of a company that isn't traditionally a remote only company. So how did you orchestrate that?
Yeah, it's kind of the same way I orchestrated going from sales into product management. It's like, just show that you're dedicated and you want to do good work, right? And that you do good work. So I guess like at the time when I went remote, I'd been with the company for 4 years and went through a lot of growth with them. And just I was a team, like, every day came in, hustled, and was a good team player, I guess. So like moving to remote was very similar to moving to product. It was just like, hey, you know me, we work well together. This is something that I want to do. Like, are you willing to support that? Right. And, you know, fortunately enough, like, I think I was in a position where people were extremely supportive, and the leadership team at Vidyard was extremely supportive. Like, thank you. Like, I owe a lot to them for that support. So when I'd asked to move to London, um, you know, it was kind of like a, yeah, sure, let's figure it out. Um, so I don't know if it was a ton of my own ability or anything to make that happen. It was just investing time, you know, working hard, showing that I'm committed to the business, and then kind of explaining my rationale for why I wanted to move. Like, I had never really imagined I'd live in Kitchener for 4 years. Leaving Waterloo, I was like, we're probably never coming back to this city, right? So like, I just explained to them that, like, I don't think I see a long-term future in Kitchener, and I have an itch to kind of get abroad and to see other parts of the world. Um, and I guess they were supportive of that. I don't know. There's not too much of a story there, I guess.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you're very honest about it, though. I feel that's
Yeah.
something that kind of gets passed over a lot, where like at least with my close friends, I always tell them just be honest. Like, what's the worst that can really happen? If they fire you, then you probably never would want to
Yeah.
be there anyways. And I I feel like even when I look back, a lot of the close relationships I've made with mentors or just kind of all the people I've worked with, managers, partners, all that, I got close because I was brutally honest about what I wanted to do, what I thought about the job. And like I tell people, like when I was in consulting, I think within my first month or two, I told our leading partner that I'm probably going to leave here and I'm going to join a hedge fund. I'm going to be applying for hedge funds all the time. So I want to be on projects that's going to help me get into a hedge fund. And he's like, all right. And so that's how my consulting career started.
And that's scary, man. Like, it's like, I like doing that right out of school and being so upfront with people. I think is like, kudos to you for being willing to do that. I don't think a lot of people. I think it takes a while for people to get comfortable to be able to, like, tell people what they want, right?
Right.
And to be honest with people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think I obviously didn't get that on the like in the beginning. I think the great thing about our program was that we got to do co-op, and so we were practically full-time employees at the age of like 20.
Yeah.
And I learned it from the accounting days, like the hard way, where you don't say anything and then just keep on taking the work, and then I ended up like exploding and just completely burning out, and that's one of the reasons I left. Like, the classic pulling too many 120-hour work weeks, and then I straight up told my manager, I was like, yeah, so I punched a hole in the wall because I was extremely depressed, and I think I have to go
Yeah.
see a therapist. And I was telling him all the stuff, and he's like, wow, I had no idea. And I was like, oh well, yeah, I'll probably quit. And then he was like, oh wow. And then we're still friends to this day. I catch up with him every quarter or so.
That's awesome that you're able to honest with them. Like, I haven't punched a hole in the wall, but I remember, like, and this is not. There's nothing wrong with accounting. Like,
No,
I
no.
don't say this to, like, a lot of people love that work and they do really good work, and I think it was just a bad fit. Like, I remember after I drive from, like, Brampton to Markham, work like 16 hours, get in my car, and then just, like, scream before driving back to Brampton because I need to get it all. I was still living with my parents then because I was in co-op. I would just, like, scream in my car to, like, calm down, and then I would drive back home and then say, like, "Hey mom, hey dad, like, I'm okay now." That was, yeah, dude. You're bringing me back. Those are crazy times. I never told anyone that. Like, I was never honest with anybody
Yeah.
at the firm, and they probably would have reacted perfectly fine if you had, right. That's why you have those people coaches, like, mentors and stuff. But I just bottled it up. I just complained to friends all the time, and that's just, what's the point of complaining if you're not going to do anything about it, right? So
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
I think I just got really lucky because I think when in my first audit, I just copied everything from past documents, and then my manager at the time, who was new to the firm, grilled me. She said, "Do you understand what you're doing?" And then I told her, "No, I don't. I'm just copying because I want to get out." And then I wrote in my performance evaluation, they ask like, oh, what are some good things you did and some bad things, like some things to improve on, quote unquote. And I wrote down, I copied all my all prior documents without knowing what was going on, and I lied to my manager in the beginning by telling her I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. And then my performance coach came back and he said, "This is the best review I've ever written. I've ever read. This is so honest.
That's funny.
But I'm gonna change all the words so you don't get fired." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh,
And then that kind of, I think, brought up on the cycle of, oh, I think honesty works out. And then, like, one of the reasons I punched a hole in the wall is because when I was young, I was diagnosed with like anger management issues, and so it's something I've been living with for a while. And I think now I've kind of fixed it through a lot of like meditation work. But during the time when I talked about it to my partners and managers at the time, like one of the managers was like, "Oh, yeah, I have anger issues too. Like when I first started Audit, did you know I told the client that he was just stupid and I got pulled off the entire audit, but I didn't get fired?" And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yep." And I was like, "Wow, didn't know that."
That's crazy. We're all humans, right? Like that's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like everyone's got their own thing going on. Like you like sometimes you look at these like leadership and you're like, man, they got it all figured out. But the reality is everybody's got these crazy stories of like, slip ups or mistakes that they made or like stuff that they're struggling with.
Yeah. And it's kind of a tangent to kind of prove the point that honesty works. Be honest, because you'll probably get the things you want if you're honest about it. And
yeah,
in terms of like the slip ups and yeah, like all the things that actually like go on in the backwards, I'm curious, like from the journey from Vidyard to now what you're doing now at HyperComply, it from someone looking out, they'll be like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, he was a product manager, like he was in sales at a tech firm, and then obviously he was in product management. That makes sense. And then he joins a remote company, and then a remote company as a product manager. And from the outside, like everyone always kind of assumes like things are linear. Like when I talk to non-tech people, they'll look at my career and they'll say, "Oh, you're an accountant and then a consultant and then an investor. Oh, that makes sense. It's so linear." And I'll tell them, "No, it's not linear at all." But you don't really know that until actually goes through it. And so I'm curious for you, like, which part of your career did you like on that journey? Did you ever feel like this is not linear at all? It's actually quite unconventional. Like it was a weird hurdle to jump through.
yeah, I think like it wasn't like I said, it wasn't. Vidyard made it pretty easy to move from sales to product management, but that felt like a weird, extremely weird leap. Like the skill set that you develop in sales is very different than the skill set you kind of need in product. So that felt like kind of a zigzag. Like I think at that time, like I was investing pretty heavily in sales and sales leadership. Like the way to really accelerate your career is to invest in one area and get really good at it, right? But like doing like a couple years accounting, a couple years sales. Now I'm like switching again. Like people are gonna look at them like, dude, like just stick to one thing, right? Like get good at one thing. And I did it, and I made another shift, and it's definitely not a progression. Like it's not like from here to here to here. Like I'm signaling with my hands and just realized we're in audio, but like it's not, I don't think I climbed a ladder in any sort of directions. It's really has been a lot of laterals, right? Like get to like senior accountant, and then you kind of like step to the side and you start in different departments, completely different, right? Like it's not progress. And then like, from sales management to product management, it's not like a step up. It's just something completely different. So that definitely, people, I don't know if people look at that and feel like it's linear, but it was definitely pretty freaking random. I think like where I started getting really confused was like after Vidyard. And when I decided it was time to leave Vidyard, like I think that was the first time where I was like, I really don't know what I want to do, and I don't really know what direction I want to head in. I knew I needed a break from Vidyard, and I had been doing product and like growth stuff for a couple of years. So I was like, I felt pretty confident in that kind of role, but like I wasn't sure what the right next step would be. So like, it was evidently not linear because I only ended up really staying at Chilipiper for a few months. Like it didn't work out. Like I didn't think it was the right mutual fit. And I was just overall a little bit burnt out from working in general. So I don't know, like the last like, 6 months, like basically post Vidyard, I've been pretty like pretty, there's been a lot of uncertainty and like a lot of confusion and a lot of like, what should I be doing right next with my life? You know what I mean? I think the linear move would just continue being a product manager at bigger and bigger companies. Like, and so like now I guess like it was again, like another pretty random move, like moving to HyperComply. So I took some time off after Chilipiper, like 2-3 months of just not working. And then a couple friends of mine from Vidyard started a company called HyperComply. And even though I'm a product manager now, I'm really just like when you're working with 4 people, like you basically just do whatever you need to do. So part of my day is like product management. Today I spent a bunch of time thinking about like our marketing, right? Other times you're like doing sales. Like it's this is like true randomness. Like I actually think it makes the most sense because like I've obviously gotten kind of bored of things pretty quickly. So like going into like a startup, like a real startup of 4 people, like just doing a bit of everything every day is perfect for me. But I don't think kind of like tying it all back, I don't think this progression like really makes any sense either. I just try to optimize for like, I don't really optimize career at all anymore. I just optimize for like day-to-day happiness and enjoying. And I just want to be happy when I'm working.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was like a rambly way to answer your question, but
it ain't that the truth though. Like I think like what I feel from at least when I look at my career and the many careers that I got to interview, thankfully on this podcast, is that many are just kind of like, if people can't see my finger pointing, but it is very non-linear. Like it goes from A to like B, which is like completely up north, and then you hit C, which is like a complete right turn somewhere, and then D is like down somewhere past like an arc, and then you just make all these weird points, and you kind of end up somewhere, but it's definitely not a line.
Yeah, it's definitely not a line. And usually where you end up, like hopefully where you end up, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah. I feel like it makes sense.
Right.
But
just a lot of iterations.
Yeah, it's hard to game. It's hard to game it and like be like this is I have a lot of respect for people who are able to do that. Like there are people that we went to school with, and maybe they'll say the same thing that it wasn't linear, but I look at their careers and like, you did a really good job. You are now partner of an accounting firm. Like that, it feels like you knew what you wanted and you went and got it. Like a lot of respect for those people. And other people like us, maybe we're just kind of like zigzagging around. We don't really know. We only know what we want to do for now. Things change quickly, and
Well, I actually think that in one way though, it's hard to know whether those people that appear like they had it all together actually know that they want to do that role. I think, like you talked about how, if you try to imagine yourself 5 years later in accounting, whether you would have liked that or not, and now it's kind of like that for me, where I see a lot of my friends in senior manager positions who have to decide, am I going to be a partner or not? And most of them are there because they don't know what else to do, but it doesn't mean that they're any happier. I've also had mentors who got the partnership offer and then turned it down because they realized that they were chasing like their father's shadow, and realized that once I got it, I realized I didn't even want it anymore. And I think those kinds of moments kind of, for me at least, makes me further believe that life actually should be in more of like a zigzag. It's just maybe we kind of get the idea of going on adventures kind of beat out from us too early when we're in a very systematic thing like school, for example. Not saying this is like the absolute, but it's something I've observed for sure, like on this like weird zigzaggy path and what is called like a career. But I'm curious, like when you mentioned how right now you're at a 4-person company, and it kind of seems like you kind of continue to scale down. Like Vidyard, when you left, was a couple 100+ people, right? It was and then you went to Chilipiper, which was I think a dozen or a couple dozen or so.
Like 30 somewhat people.
And then now you're at a 4-person company.
I think like I feel like startup, like true startup, right? 4 people is where you get to put a lot of your skills to test. And that's probably why the real reason why I wanted to do this was because I want to work with our co-founders. Like they're great people. I worked with them at Vidyard, and they were all awesome. and people I've always wanted to work with again. But yeah, I think like going smaller and smaller was just kind of, I had done the scaling with Vidyard, and it's not to say Vidyard is at its end. Like there's still so much more for them to do, but I wanted to like kind of remove a lot of the parts of my day that were related to like scaling a business, like adding in process, adding in like new like different layers of leadership, like get rid of all that kind of like stuff that is really important to growing a business, but it wasn't things that I really wanted to work on. Like I wanted to work on just like executing it, getting shit done every day. So that's why I think like that's why I decided to go smaller. It was just like, maybe if I went to a Chilipiper size company, like I would be able to like maybe a lot more hands on. Like we're not really focused on the process development within a company. We're focused on just growing as much as we can as quickly as possible. And then with HyperComply, yeah, like we're not spending any days figuring out how to like document more effectively or like how to like secure budget. It's just like go do. That's what I thought. That's what I guess my hypothesis at the time was like that's the environment I wanted to be in, which is why I ended up like started going down and working at a smaller company. Yeah.
When you left Chilipiper, you said you stayed only for a few months, and how did you combat that inner feeling of I'll stick it out, like the feeling that kept you in accounting for so long? Like how are you able to make a decision relatively quickly?
It was quick in the fact that I was only there for 3 months, but it was a pretty painful decision to make, right? Like I thought about it for a long time. It wasn't just like wake up and do it. Like it was tough. Like nothing against that team. Like team's amazing and a lot of great people there, and they're working on some really exciting stuff. Something for me just wasn't clicking. Like for me personally. So when I left without kind of any work, there's a couple things. Like I felt like it wasn't clicking. I felt like I was a little bit burnt out. I needed a break. And then I just started thinking about like, what do I want to optimize for at this moment in my life? And what I decided was like, I wanted to optimize for taking a break from work. So I guess how I made the decision was like, I just decided that like, hey, like, I'm gonna put myself as number one right now and do what feels right. And like, yeah, it's painful. Like and I guess the doubt that was going through my mind is like, one, how do I explain to my next employer that like I only worked at the company for 3 months? Like it doesn't look bad. Like a lot of people have, like move around a lot, but people have biases towards people who've done that, right? Like who've only stayed for a short time. They're just immediately ask, like, did you get fired? Why'd you leave? Are you not a team player? Are you not committed? Yada yada yada. So I was nervous about that. Second thing was I was leaving a team hanging, right? They hired me and they invested in me. And they wanted me to help out and build out these new products. And we didn't get done in 3 months, but I did feel like I was letting them down, which I did. I let them down. Like that's the reality of it. But when I kind of stripped all those doubts and worries away, I was just like, what do I need personally right now? And what I really needed for my own mental health, my own sanity was a break from work. So I think once I came to terms with that, I came to terms with putting myself first and talking to mentors and talking to friends, like it felt like the right decision. and I ended up building myself, making myself feel comfortable making that decision.
Yeah. It's like, it, right? Like you feel it and it's the right decision. It's just how long does it take you to actually kind of make the call and actually execute on that?
Yeah, it was a lot of sleepless nights for sure. Yeah. You feel really bad in those scenarios, right? Like,
yeah,
I hate letting people down. It's like to a fault. And yeah.
And so like right now, doing what you do, what is it that like really excites you about being in this like product manager role at like a 4-person company? Like what's exciting you now more than like the other roles?
We're in an exciting market. We have built something that we hear customers need and want. It is a technology that we are seeing drive a lot of value for our customers every single day, and that keeps me going. Like that's extremely exciting. When you know your product works, and when you know you have users that get a lot of value out of your product, like it just means that we could build something serious, and we could build a real big business out of it. So I think that opportunity, where we're heading, and like the potential is really getting me exciting, and driving me to do good work, and to work with this team. The teammates that I'm working with are all phenomenal, amazing people, also super focused, all extremely easy to get along with. We're all on the same kind of mission. We all want to build something big, and have an impact on have an impact on this space in the software world. So I think those are the two things that are making me excited. The last thing is just like, there's no roadmap, there's no path to figure out how to grow a company effectively. Like, there's things you can read online that like people say like you need to do, but every company is different, and our company is no exception. So I think just the lack of clarity on what to do next is really challenging, and that challenge motivates me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no playbook. We can't just copy something and we can't follow prior year. There's no prior year, right? You know what I mean? So those are the things that I'm most enthusiastic about, I guess.
And on that note, like on the things that really excite you, I feel it's like that with every role, where for every role that has there's always the exciting points, but then there's also the points where like there's like the shit you got to eat in everything you do, right? Like,
yeah,
whether it's entrepreneurship, where Musk always talks about how it's like you're chewing on glass all day, although there's all the other perks of the excitement of entrepreneurship. And for you, what, like in your role, what's the shit that you have to be willing to eat just to have all the other good stuff come with it?
Oh man, honestly, not a lot of bad stuff yet. Like, I know that sounds like fluffy, and as if I'm like trying to make sure my current employer is happy with me, but the reality is like there hasn't been a ton of like real problems. You know what I mean? Like I guess the shit we have to eat as a business is like, okay, we've got a bunch of customers in pipeline, prospects in pipeline. We want them to close, because if we begin to close, and every deal is significant to us right now. So obviously, like the blips in that process, like sales is not easy. Like there's always gonna be things out of your control. Like that sucks, right? When you lose a deal, or when a deal isn't moving as quickly along as you want it to be, like you eat that for sure. I think the thing that I'm struggling with right now, and maybe this is not a negative thing. It is what excites me, but working at Vidyard, you have data to work with, right? We have lots of users. We can like dive in, and we can make what we feel is like informed decisions. Right now feels like a ton of guesswork, and I am nervous about the bets that we make, and I'm nervous about the kind of lack of data I have to lean on to make informed decisions. I think that's been like the hardest thing, and that's like more of like what I'm learning about myself is like I make good decisions when there's numbers to like look at and make those decisions. I struggle with like decision making when there is like nothing to lean on, no data points to lean on. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm more of a traditional accountant in that sense. Like I like the numbers, so that's been a learning process for me. That I think I feel very uncomfortable with having to make decisions without data to back it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a bad thing. It's a learning experience, but that's probably the thing that makes me most uneasy while working at a small startup. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point, and something I did want to touch upon on a separate note. It's what you've been working remotely for how many years now? Like 2-3 years?
2 years.
2 years?
2 full years. Yeah.
And so when this whole COVID thing happened, for me, nothing had really changed in my work life, because I'd been working remote for 2 years, and I feel like it's probably relatively similar for you. But what was like the first 6 months like when you chose to work remotely? Like, what was that adjustment like? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was tough, and I think it's harder for some people than it is for others. Like for me, it probably wasn't as hard as it could be, because I was working remotely with a team that I'd spent 4 years with. So like sometimes when an employee is hired and they're one of one of few remote employees, you're kind of like out of sight, out of mind, right? Like you're not in the office, you get left out of meetings, you get all that stuff. But I knew how to like inject myself into the business and make sure that people remember I exist. So that wasn't hard. I think the things that I found most challenging was like loneliness. Like I did not realize how much I should have known, but most of my life in Kitchener was built around the people I worked with at Vidyard. Some of my like really close friends are people that I worked with at Vidyard. My social life was with people I worked at Vidyard. I was getting kind of exhausted by it, like because like my life was just Vidyard all the time. So I pulled myself out, and I did not realize like what kind of like the vacuum that would create of like, oh my God, my social life's gone. I moved to a new city. I have no friends, and now I have no coworkers to even talk to during the day. Like it was just it was really isolating. It felt extremely lonely at first. Other things that were really challenging, I think, with working remote was like you don't realize that like when you have meetings and you're working in an office, you have an opportunity to get up, walk to the next meeting, grab a coffee, grab a drink of water, then go to the next meeting. And then at Vidyard, we have 3 floors, so you might have meetings on the second floor, or the third floor, or the first floor, and you'd go up and down stairs. You get some like movement in. Holy crap! Like going remote for the first time, and like I was just on Zoom calls basically like 8 hours a day, sitting in one seat, and I developed like lower back problems. I did not realize like what that was doing to like my sanity. I just felt extremely exhausted. That was tough. Like just like not really knowing how to like physically be remote, like how to like optimize for my physical environment. And then I guess the last thing was like, and this might be unique to just me specifically, but like I went from working in Eastern time zone to London, right? And that meant that I was like working 5 hours ahead of my team for the most part, which meant that like I would typically work well into like the PM like every day. So like it was, I'd still get up normally because I want to get up at like 8 a.m. and get my day started at work. I know 8 a.m. is not early for you, but it was early for me. Get up and have a proper work day, but I would end up just working until 10 p.m. every day. So I got burnt out. Like, it was tough making that adjustment. Funny enough though, like with coronavirus, like COVID-19 right now going on, I actually do think, even though I'm used to working remotely, I have been impacted, like in terms of how I work, because before COVID-19, I work remotely, but I don't like work remotely because I want to work from home. I actually don't like working from home. I like working at coffee shops. I like working at co-working spaces. I like getting in a house and just like working in different environments every day. So in London, I would bounce around quite frequently. I like go to the co-working. I would go, maybe one day I work at home. Maybe one day I'd go to like a cafe. Maybe another day I'll go like work at a library or whatever. So I would always change the environment up, and that to me gives me a lot of energy. Then moving to like now being in the scenario where we have to work at home, like my wife and I were working in the same space all day long. I need to get out. Like it's actually been challenging. I've been finding my focus has decreased. I've been finding a lot of the same like loneliness is starting to kick in again, because I just don't see anything else other than like, these 4 walls all day long. So I empathize with a lot of people who are going from working in office to working from home. And I encourage them, like, remote work is awesome. Building a completely distributed team is awesome. It's a great way to save money. It's a great way to like work with people from all around the world. Working from home in the current situation we're in is not true remote work. It's like not optimized, right? Like people traditionally didn't work at home with all their kids running around. People don't traditionally sit in a small studio apartment with their significant other, like, all day long, both clanking away at a laptop. Like that's not normal. So I think a lot of the problems that people are having today, I'm also having. Yeah.
That's actually a very good point. I'm actually glad you brought it up, because like honestly, like I said, it's like it's kind of the same deal, but you're right, it isn't, because I thought it would be normal, and it's awesome that you bring it up, because I was thinking if I was weird that it wasn't normal. Because when everybody started working from home, like so I always host weekly poker nights at my home, and I have a bunch of guys come in. Half of them are remote, and half of them are at office workers. And so the office workers are just where they begin a conversation with, "It's great, man. I'm not doing anything. I kind of logged in once in a day and didn't do anything." And the remote guys are like, now you guys are making us lazy, and we kind of were joking about that. But yeah, like it's true. Like the whole kind of routine kind of got cracked up for me too, because I'm not like today. I didn't go to my co-working space like I would normally do, and even when I go to a co-working space, I always take my 2 o'clock walk. I always go for like a 30-minute walk and I come back, and like you said, constantly changing environments. And I think like it's more so as I think about it, you and I, or like I guess me personally, like I've definitely been blessed to have experienced remote work enough so that I can deal with this kind of environment to some degree, because I started just only working from home and I couldn't take it anymore, and then I went to coffee shops, and then I upgraded to co-working spaces. So I know what this is like, but yeah, I can definitely I can empathize with people who are forced into this kind of block.
Yeah, like I've gotten messages from people saying like, I absolutely hate this. I can't focus.
Yeah.
I like, there's always something grabbing for your attention. Like, I don't know how people do it with kids, right? Like if you have 2-3 kids at home, like I don't know how you get anything done. So, I guess to anybody listening who's like ever considered remote work, like this is not what remote work is.
No,
like, remote work can be extremely productive, right? Like what I love about remote work is like the way you work. Like you can work asynchronously. You don't have to be on calls all day. You can, work from anywhere in the world, right? You can work with people from all over the world. Like that's the exciting part. Like forcing an entire office to like adjust within like a week to like working at home is just not it.
No, absolutely. And I love that disclaimer. And as we kind of hit upon like the final moments of this interview, I think this is a good way to kind of end off. I want to ask you if you could think back to the 20-year-old Terrance. So then this is a Terrance who is probably in his third co-op term at KPMG, or like his third year at university, and if you were to like look at what you are doing right now, your life right now, what do you think that Terrance's emotional reaction would be? Would it be proud? Would it be confused? Would it be upset?
I think if I looked at what I was doing, just like job wise,
right,
I think that Terrance would be extremely confused and concerned because it just didn't fit what I was thinking a career should look like at that time in my life. But if I told, that past me, like how happy I was, how much I was enjoying the work I was doing, enjoying the randomness of the last like 5-6 years post accounting, I think I'd be pretty happy about that, right? Like some of you just like looking at it like from the outside in, like it's like that's a pretty random career. Like why did you not stick with accounting, or why did you not like go into like consulting or like investment or whatever? And then maybe he'd be disappointed, but I'm in general very happy, and I'm happy with the work I'm doing. I'm happy with the decisions I've made, and I think younger me would be happy with that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And if you could give yourself, that 20-year-old self, advice, what kind of advice would you like to give him?
Go to your lectures because I failed fourth year and had to repeat it. So if 20-year-old me, third year me, like I wish I didn't have to repeat a year of university. Just I think what I really needed at that time was to pause and to reflect on what is it I want to, not necessarily what I want to do career wise, but what kind of life do I want to have, right? And what are the things that I really want to like optimize for myself, like for me, right? I think I was optimizing a lot for other people, or what other people said I should be optimizing for, but I never really took a second to like challenge that. I challenge people because I think everyone tries to give you the best advice they can. I never really questioned like, hey, maybe this advice doesn't apply to me, right? Or like these suggestions from other people is not who I am, right? I just never took a second to think. I just kept going and going and going and just doing what everyone else was doing. And I think if I had taken a second to think then and to reflect and to really understand myself, I might have made different decisions, and maybe I wouldn't be screaming in my car, after a day's worth of work. So yeah.
No, that's solid. And yeah, I think everyone would be doing themselves a favor by using the opportunity we have right now, where they might have some time to think while they're at home, and taking the time to pause and maybe just sit with your thoughts for a bit. I feel a lot of people they get a little scared about sitting with their thoughts, and it's something we kind of sometimes get used to. But Terrance, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it, and it's awesome that we can chat together while you're over there in Edmonton. It's not as far as the last time when you were in Taipei, but yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on the podcast, and I love hearing your story. So thanks for doing that.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Thanks for letting me ramble for an hour.
Awesome. All right. Take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope the story was inspiring to you. Hopefully it also helped you expand your perspectives. Hopefully it also made you question the default path that you might have been going on, or the default beliefs you might have had. And maybe now it'll make you even think about doing something about it, doing something different, maybe challenging yourself, being courageous. Who knows? But regardless, I'm really happy that you took some time out of your day to listen to this fantastic story with my guest. And if you would like to somehow, in some way, contribute and help support the podcast, and maybe even just be part of the community that I'm trying to build with the greater OMD Ventures platform, really think about being a stakeholder in the platform. And the quick way to do that is to go to my website, oldmandan.com, and go to the stakeholders page. I believe it's oldmandan.com/stakeholder. And the link is also down below. And that's how you can figure out how you can subscribe, follow to get more updates on the free content, but at the same time also donate by actually just buying me a coffee. That's just how I put it. And you can buy me a coffee a month, coffee a week, or coffee every day of the year. And think about it as the way that, if you wanted to chat with me, you might just bring me out for coffee and buy me a coffee. Or if you wanted to bring one of my guests out to chat, you might buy them a coffee. So just think of it as I'm the service that's doing that for you, so you can just pay me in coffees. Don't worry, everything will still be free. It would just really help if you would like to show your support this way, so that I can use the coffee money to buy myself actual coffees, and also to buy my guests actual coffees, and use the leftover money to actually grow the platform, as well as even keep it operationally alive as well, because all this isn't really free, and it does take a lot of time to build it as well as operate it, and hopefully grow it further. So your support would be amazing if you would like to contribute. And so just check out the website, go to the stakeholders page, and read the different kind of benefits you might even get as a stakeholder. All right, thank you.